Good evening. Today is March the 21st, 2013. I am Nancy Nolan Jones, a community researcher for the Social Justice Institute Voicing and Action Project. And tonight we are here with Tammi Swails, who has graciously agreed to share her story with our project. Thank you so much, Tammi, for agreeing to be here with us. And I would like to just start out with knowing a little bit about you.
Um,
If you could tell us about yourself and the history of your family.
um, well, I grew up in Warrensville, but I did have cousins that lived in East Cleveland. They lived on Bryn Mawr, right next to the library, across the street from the theater, the East Cleveland Theater. And they moved from the theater to Grassmere. And I used to come and visit them all the time, a lot on the weekends, um, to spend time just with my cousins. And then I used to have a crush on some young men that lived around the corner from my cousins when they lived on Bryn Mawr. So that's why I used to always want to come over to East Cleveland. And I used to take my little cousin walking and around the corner, and she used to get upset because she never wanted to walk up and down and past these young men's house.
Oh, nice, nice. But so you had a lot of years in East Cleveland and visiting and everything.
Since I think actually, if I think back, even before they moved to Bryn Mawr, they lived on not Belfort, I think Van Buren. Van Buren, I think that Van Buren. They lived on Van Buren for a while, and then they moved to Bryn Mawr, and then Grassmere. So
So, in your family, um, are you a product of mother and father, siblings in the household?
mother and stepfather.
Uh-huh.
Um, all my siblings were older, had their own families, but it seemed like they got divorced. They came back, then moved back in with us. But it was my mom and my stepdad, and me and my stepdad most of the time
Really, in Warrensville.
in Warrensville.
So how did the communities compare as you visited back and forth between Warrensville and East Cleveland? Did you notice any distinct differences?
Um, a little. Warrensville seemed like, I guess, when we were up there, Warrensville was considered, we was a little bit more bougie, a little bit more stuck up. And it seemed like East Cleveland had a lot more apartment buildings than Warrensville. It seemed like we had more homes, and they seemed to be, not saying that East Cleveland wasn't middle class, but it seemed like Warrensville was probably looked a little bit more upper middle class than East Cleveland.
The homes look like a suburban community, kind of.
And yes, in Warrensville.
So how are the people, though?
Um,
The difference, the actual people.
I would say, I guess, coming down here, I felt more to myself. I didn't seem to be that stuck up little girl that a lot of people assumed that I were because I was from Warrensville. So a lot of people thought that I was, stuck up and bougie. But I enjoyed, seemed like I was able to make more friends in East Cleveland, and especially hanging out with my cousins, and even going to my oldest cousin, going to some of the dances and things at Shaw, you know. So
Did, so, how did your cousins feel about coming to Warrensville then?
actually, they never really came out
They
to
didn't?
visit.
No. So they enjoyed their community.
Hmm.
Wow. What are some of the things that you did in the community?
Besides walk around the corner.
Yeah.
My cousin, we would go shopping up at the plaza, because it seemed like back then they had more closing plazas. Then we were, and my cousin worked, I think, at the time, I don't know if it was Uncle Bill's or Gold Circle at Severance. And then we would go up to Severance and hang out. And a lot of times just hang out on the, like down, especially when they lived on Bryn Mawr. It was a dead end street, and it was a very close knit street. Everybody on the street knew everybody. And it seemed like I became a part of that street. You know, it was back then where people sat on their porches, people talked, you know, neighbors knew what was going on with people's kids. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, you know, like closed door, shut in, I don't know you, you don't know me, you know, stay away. Mm-hmm. You know, you could stay out. I think that's probably another reason why I like being over there. I can stay out late to like midnight and not get in trouble. Nothing happened because we was right there in front of the house. You know, my aunt was able to keep eyes on us. And even if my aunt wasn't home, if she was at work, the other neighbors, you know, kept eyes on us. And it was just a friendly community, and I miss that. And I do miss that, but we didn't, and that's one thing we didn't have in Warrensville. We didn't have, you could sit on your porch, watch, you know, the kids. We became that closed-in community. It's like I knew the neighbors next door to us, but I didn't know a lot of the people up the street unless we all went to school together. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't families wasn't looking out. We didn't have the porches like they had the porches in East Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think that probably is the reason why I enjoyed, because I love a porch. And when I do get a house, I want a house with a porch on it so I can get a rocking chair and just sit and people watch the people on the street.
How old were you during that time?
When they lived on Bryn Mawr, I think I had to be in middle school or junior high, as we called it back then. I was in junior high. Mm. So probably around like 12, 13, 14, around that age.
So, you know, this kind of speaks to the next question. What were your fondest memories of East Cleveland? So it sounds like mm-hmm. they were being
able to go visit my cousins and, mm-hmm. you know, sitting on the porch, you know, talking and joking, you know, even playing up and down the street, you know, relay races, tag, you know, things like that, you know, things that kids don't do now. They're in the house, video games. Yeah. Or if they are sitting on the porch, they texting. You know, they're not even paying attention. They're not even aware of their surroundings. Yeah. Where,
that's something. That's something. So that kind of led into in what ways has the city changed over time? And what do you think contributed to those changes?
I think economics contributed to those changes. A lot of the homeowners now, you know, families passed, you know, parents passed, kids not really keeping up with their property, or they selling their parents' property and it's becoming renters' property. East Cleveland has, and I work in East Cleveland, and it seems like it has become a transient city. People stay here for a little while. People are not, a lot of the families now are not invested in East Cleveland like they were when my cousins and my aunt lived in East Cleveland. It seemed back then a lot of the families were more invested. Even if they lived in an apartment building, they were still more invested in East Cleveland and what the benefits of East Cleveland had. And I think even during that time, around the 80s, and it had came into Warrensville too, when that crack epidemic hit. And I think that became a big factor in a lot of our urban communities. It touched in Warrensville, but not quite as bad like it seemed like it touched here in East Cleveland. You know, with people just walking away from their houses, crime, you know, escalating. Because I think last year when I looked at the statistics of murders in 2012, I want to say I believe East Cleveland had 7 murders, not including the 2 that got shot in the Heritage parking lot. 7, and for East Cleveland, I think that's kind of high because this is not a big city.
So, do you think economics played a role in it? But, I need you to unpack that for me, economics. So, does that mean people didn't have jobs, or?
Because I think there was a lot, I think, here. I don't remember, but I do remember an older lady telling me that I think GM was once in East Cleveland. And when GM left, so that took a lot of jobs. And then when businesses start shutting down, like even with just the small mom and pop businesses, because when you get these big stores like Walmart and, back then Finest, a lot of these smaller stores start shutting down. And then, like I said, with the renters and the landlords not taking care of the property, and then some people not being invested because it's not their property, or they don't have to pay no rent because they're, getting help, they don't care. And they kind of let the property go. The landlords is not taking care of it, and they're not paying their taxes. And I think that's part of it. They're not paying their property taxes. The city's not getting money to be able to keep up with things that the city needs, or that the community needs.
Mm-hmm. It kind of gets to be a vicious cycle.
Right.
So with no jobs, people can't get the money.
Mm-hmm. And then sometimes your crime gets high. People start robbing people, breaking into houses. And it's just unfortunate that you break into my house, but I probably got the same thing you have, or maybe not as much as you have, but you don't know. So you thinking, that I do, because maybe you see me going out every day. You don't know if I'm going out to work or if I'm going to look for work. It's just sad, and I'm happy to be working in East Cleveland and to be working with the families that I'm working with and trying to help them to understand and to become more self-sufficient.
Wait, tell me about your job.
I work for Murtis Taylor. We have a site here in East Cleveland which sits on the corner of Noble and Terrace behind Apex School, which formerly used to be Christ the King School and Christ the King Church, which is now Temple Baptist Church. We sit in a small building in the back. We have mental health services for adults, but the program I work for is called Family to Family. And what we do is we work with families that have children that could be in custody of Children and Family Services, or might be on that verge of being placed. And so we try to either prevent them from going into the system, or if they're already in the system, we try to work with that family to get that child back home if that's the proper place and the safe place for them to be. We also, one of our biggest things is that we try to recruit foster parents in East Cleveland, because we feel that a child should stay in a familiar environment and not be sent to Toledo or Lima, Ohio, places that they're not familiar with. Because if they attend church, the schools, everything around here is still familiar, even if it's on the other side of East. If it's on the west side of East Cleveland, but they lived on Hayton, but they had to move to Brightwood, because that's where the foster family lived. Or they had to move to Forest Hill, but they still, in their community, still familiar with their surroundings. So that's one of our biggest things, is that we try to recruit foster families. And also even we work with the kinship, who have taken custody of either grandchildren or cousins or nieces and nephews. So.
Is it successful? And I say successful, that's subjective, but do you have a lot of people who are volunteering to be those foster families?
We have, I get a lot of, I think last year when I did my recruitment activities last year, we had 22 potential families. The only thing is the follow up. So what we're doing this year is that we're making copies of all the families, so we will be able to follow up. because once we send the names to the county, we don't know actually what happened if the family continues into the pre-service, because it's a either a 6-week or 12-week pre-service that they have to go through. Then after that, they do a home study. And the home study is where we probably really want to work with the family, because that becomes the most intense part. And that's the part where a lot of the families do kind of drop off, because children and family services do get very embracive in the family. You know, everything that you probably ever done from the time you was born to the time you right now trying to, you know, just want to become a foster parent and maybe just do the right thing to help these kids. And another thing is that we try to encourage the parents whose kids are in foster care to don't be upset with the foster parent. They're not trying to take your kids, and we try to encourage the foster parent to become that mentor, because maybe that young mother never had a mother, or never, you know, we see that generation of, we got 35-year-old grandmothers, you know, 40-year-old great-grandmothers. So if you were 15 and 16 and 14 and had a kid, you were still a kid. So we asked the foster parents, maybe with that 19-year-old or that 18-year-old who has 3 kids already at 18, mentor her, you know, become that mother, you know, because her mother is probably her friend who's probably hanging out and kicking it with her, but be that mother that she never had, and to let her know that, you know, I'm not trying to take your kid, but I'm here as an auntie to help your kid, to take care of your kid while whatever it is that you're going through, to get your kid back home.
So, if the era of crack is gone, crack is, we don't hear very much about it, or is it still there?
Well, I think it's still here, but I know heroin seems to be making a comeback. A lot of the drug of choice, when we get a lot of our cases, if it's a drug case, it's marijuana, probably laced with, a lot of them been doing wet, which is dipping their marijuana into embalming fluid. Like I said, heroin is making a comeback. Ecstasy and popping pills is now a big thing for our young mothers.
Wow.
So.
Wow. So that causes the parents to be negligent in a way.
Mm-hmm. Negligent, where, you know, maybe if they are getting benefits, they're probably using that money not to care for the child, but to, and that's one of the things when they come in and they seeking rental assistance, need beds for their kids, or whatever the situation is. I have my staff sit down and do a budget with them, because I want to know where their money's going. Of course, they're not going to tell me that they're buying crack or they're buying heroin or they're doing this and that, but let them see where they're spending their money, if they're being dishonest, because a lot of times when we sit down and they're getting, whether if it's the cash benefits from OWF or whether if it's SSI, and we sit down with them and we include their food stamps, a lot of times they end up saying that we have an overage, like you have a surplus of income a month. And they be like, no, I don't. I say, so well, then you spending more money than you telling us. So, and we try to, you know, work with them to try to figure that out, and just so you can understand, you know, and then where's your priorities, because so you see, I have no nails. So where's your priorities? Is it buying your kid a school uniform, or going to get your nails done and getting your hair done?
So how many are on your rolls for East Cleveland?
How many families?
How many people do you serve that?
Well, and actually, I'm so glad I finished this, because my boss wanted my statistics for 2012. When I finished, I had serviced 849 children.
In East Cleveland?
Well, we service East Cleveland and part of South Collinwood, which is like that part of like by Collinwood High School, 152nd School, up in that area. So kind of together, but I would say the majority of our families do come from East Cleveland.
800?
849 children. And that's because some of our families had a lot of kids. You know, we had one mother who had 10 kids. And it was maybe about 5 mothers that had like 10 kids, and they're in their 30s. And I think and out of that and this is 380 adults. So.
Wow. It's a pretty sobering experience.
Right.
To work with people who've lost their way
And hoping that we can guide them back and to teach them you don't have to manipulate or use the system. Even if you have to get SSI because you have, there's something wrong, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But let's be able to work with that and, let's set some priorities. What's more important? Making sure that my rent things are paid, my utilities are paid, so I can have a safe, at least even if the outside might not be safe, but at least inside my house is safe and my kids are safe while they're in here with me.
Does the message seem to be getting through?
I say to get through to some. We still have some, and then like I said, a lot of them, this is a transit city. So we have a lot that move out. I don't want to be in East Cleveland. They move up to Cleveland Heights, maybe Euclid. Then 6 months, year later, they right back in East Cleveland. So
why are they back to East Cleveland? What's the draw here?
I think it's because whatever happened and they didn't pay their rent, whatever the situations are, they come back to
family homes.
And some of them are family, and some of them do come back because this is where their parents are. They might have cousins or sisters here that they can probably live with them temporarily until they.
So that's really something. The next question is, how has race or racism impacted you personally?
Me, and I think I kind of got it on both sides, with my complexion. Especially when I was younger, I think sometimes I had darker people, talking about me, half-breed, white girl. And then I never really experienced it because, I think I just experienced that part with, being around my own race of people. I didn't experience the white people being racist towards me until I got to college. I remember being in my sociology class, and we were talking about race, and we had this white guy stand up and say, blacks should stay with blacks, and whites should stay with whites, and everybody, all races should stay with each other and not be trying to mix and intermingle. And then I just stood up and said, well, what about the people who already done intermingled and are biracial? Who am I going to? And then he's like, well, I think it depends on how you look. If you look white, then hang with the white people. If you look black, then hang with the black people. I said, well, what if you look like me and you kind of look like both of them? Depending on who's looking at me, how far a distance I am. Because I used to get, when I used to date guys, and I had this thing about motorcycles. And I used to date guys who had motorcycles. And at one point in time, I had my hair dyed blonde, and it was long and hanging outside the helmet. And I had on these little Daisy Duke shorts. And I'm on the back of the motorcycle, and I just hear these young black females pull up like, you couldn't get one of us, huh? But all they saw was this blonde hair hanging out the helmet and these pale white legs on the.
So you're from a biracial?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's been hard, huh?
Mm-hmm. So,
They
but
didn't
I
know
learned,
you were black. So
no,
the guy,
they didn't know.
so you were riding with a black guy.
Right.
So in your family, who's who? The
My
mother
mother,
is black
black and right.
and your father's white.
Mm.
So how has that experience been for you, just even with them? Do you feel it? Are they together?
No.
So do you see your father?
I haven't seen my father since I was 15. And I had never seen him even before I was 15. I think they separated when I was 6 months. And I hadn't seen him before.
So you really don't know that side of the family?
No.
So what did your mother tell you? Did she tell you the proverbial statement, one
She
you're
never
black,
really
or?
just, well, she always brought me up as being black and to be proud of who. So that's who I am.
That's who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You've accepted that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, you know that to even be able to speak about it is huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's really huge. And you seem like you've worked through it.
Yeah, it took me some time because I think sometimes you get confused on who you want to be, who do you think, who are you. But I got through it. I'm proud to be who I am. You know, I probably said if I was old enough in the 60s, I probably would have been Angela Davis, power to the people.
All right, well, you got the Angela Davis look. You're her younger sister then, huh? So, if you had to do it again, and just looking at how people are today in the world,
Well, I know in today's world, I would not want to be a teenager. I would not want, because I look at my nephews who are teens, and the kids, even the kids that I work with, it's just so much on them to where, I mean, I thought that I had a lot of pressure, you know, being in high school or being in middle school or junior high. These kids, you know, even like something, and I think, and I look back, because I like the movie Grease, and they seemed like they had seemed like it was some sexual metaphors in there, but as a kid, I never picked up on them. I mean, I didn't pick them. I was probably like in my 30s when I finally realized in some of the stuff that they were doing it. I was like, oh wow. But as a kid, I didn't see it. But these kids now, everything is sexual. Even the cartoons, is sexual. And you know, these are cartoons that's coming on. I hate to say it, but Disney, Nickelodeon, these, you know, and you have to almost be a parent so to tell your child, you know, it's not real, it's TV, you know. And I don't think too much has changed because I still see the racism in people. I mean, look at our president. I don't think these Republicans, they didn't treat Bill Clinton, you know, that way. And I mean, it's like everything he tries to do to help better, no matter what race of people it is, they just knock it out the box. And then it's unfortunate that a lot of people are not seeing that. And they just think it's him, or he's not a good president, and he's not doing this, and he's not, you know. And then I hate the fact that Cornel West and Travis Smiley, who are two very influential black people, talks about our president, and you know, and a lot of people listen to them. So, you know, I prayed hard for him to get reelected this time, because I was a little afraid. I thought I was going to have to move to Canada, because I ain't going to lie, I did look up to see what the citizenship in Canada.
did you?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
To see what it takes to become a citizen in Canada.
Did you? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Did you ever try to explore the white side?
No.
Never.
I think, well, no, I take that back. I don't think I ever tried to explore it, but I did try to date white boys in college. And I don't know, I just still just seem to be drawn back to our brothers.
Feel awkward?
You feel awkward, people estranged. I remember dating this one guy. He was in a fraternity. I went to the fraternity house, and his brother yelled up and was like, "That little nigger girl is here for you." So I was just like, okay. And then I was a little more, not quite as laid back as I am now. And I was like, "Oh, little nigger girl." Yes, like, I bet you want some of this nigger girl, don't you? So.
You had to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And then you
So,
decided, what, it's not worth it.
And I just said it's not worth, if this is what I got to go through every time I come over here. Or, even the other half. Love my black brothers. It's okay for them to date a white girl. I walked through the student center with him. Oh, she thinks she's better than us. Oh, she can't date us, huh? Oh, she'd rather be with him. But yet, y'all over to all these white girls in school. So it was like, so I was like, I guess all the black girls are supposed to be alone. We just supposed to be by ourselves. Y'all date all the white girls, and the white boys, I guess, they get in where they fit in. But we just, black females, we just date no one. We just be by ourselves. So.
It's a mess.
Right. It was crazy. So.
How is it for you now that you're mature?
I date. I still date our brothers. But, and I really don't hang out or go nowhere to really meet that many people. If it's not sorority or a fraternity function, I'm, usually at home. I don't get into the club scenes no more like I used to when I was younger. Because actually it just seems like it's just too much, going on, unless a friend of mine is having a personal party at the place. I don't.
So it's less likely that you'll run into that kind of. So what, are you in a sorority?
Mm-hmm.
Which one?
AKA Alpha Kappa Alpha.
Is that the only one?
No, that's the only one. That's the only one to be. No.
Yeah. That's what I hear. Yeah.
And I also do the arts. So I also do the arts. And actually, talking about East Cleveland, I've done a lot with the East Cleveland Theater.
Have you?
Yes. So and I'm on a board of the East Cleveland Theater too. So. Yes.
Have you've been in plays?
Yes.
Have you?
Yes.
Like, tell me something.
Well, I played Mama in Raising in the Sun, and that was another thing that was funny. When I played Mama in Raising in the Sun, people were like, "Aren't you too light to play her? Because didn't every mother in Raising in the Sun was dark?" I said, "Well, Felicia Rashad wasn't that dark." And actually, I just finished a play, like last week. It was called Still Away. It was about 5 black church women. And what I liked about the play was a comedy, and it was set in the 1930s in Chicago. But it talked about a lot of the issues that were going on as far as with black people with the Jim Crow era back then. Even though it was a comedy, but it still brought those issues in, and about, the Ku Klux Klan, and still brought that stuff in for people to still be aware of what was going on, back then. So.
The next question, I think you kind of answered some of it, but how has inequality impacted you personally? And how has it impacted the city of East Cleveland? And I think we've been back and forth, but before we go there, the race question impacts you personally. Can you tell me if you feel that it has or has not impacted the city of East Cleveland?
I think it has. I think, like when I was watching, I was telling you about the documentary earlier, and when it was showing how this was the property of Rockefeller, and then how it turned into the suburb of East Cleveland. And when they were showing the pictures of all the people who lived in East Cleveland during that time, they were all white. And then, and it was showing like how things transitioned, you know, black people start moving in. And it was still in, you know, still probably then one of the cities, you know, one of the suburbs you wanted to be in, because that became a black suburb, but and it still had had its own almost like the Black Wall Street that was in I think was it Iowa or Tulsa. That it was kind of like that, like they had everything there was pretty much black owned after the white people had kind of moved out. So, and then it's just unfortunately, like I said, with probably parents dying, then people moving more up the hill into Cleveland Heights, South Euclid, going into Shaker, going into Warrensville and Bedford, you know, moving more up. And like I said, then parents probably dying, family, kids taking over their homes, not really wanting them, either selling them or just letting them just go in the right.
So that's a lot of migration. But do you think racism itself had any impact there? Because that's black on black then, huh? Yeah.
I would say because the white people seem to moved out before a lot of the black.
So when they moved out, though.
But yeah, right, because they probably when the first black family probably moved in, you got that, or our property value is about to go down. So they start moving out and moving up.
And did it go down, do you think? When the white people left, it changed?
I think it changed, but I don't think the property value, well, you know what, it probably did go down because more blacks was able to move in. But I wouldn't blame it. I wouldn't blame it on the race of black people. I blame it on probably the real estate. You know, they just probably lowered the prices because they felt that they wasn't going to be able to get more anyway.
That would be racism?
I would think.
Yeah.
That they did it on purpose. They just sell it for as much as you can just to get me out of here.
And so when that happened, maybe the people who purchased weren't really able to sustain it.
Well, I don't know, because it seemed like when my aunt was living here, there were a pretty good class of people that were living in East Cleveland, able to maintain, like I said before, able to maintain and took pride in where they lived at. Like I said, whether it was the apartment building or if it was the homes, they took pride in where they lived at.
Wow.
And like I said, I just think it's when parents probably died or left the house to their children that some kids didn't care, and then some kids, like I said, then probably when that mid-'80s, when the crack epidemic hit, and that's what people's money was going for. And
then without the jobs in the country, it's hard to recover. So how okay, how has inequality impacted you personally? It's a little different than racism.
Inequality. I never thought about that. I never thought about. I never ever thought about how inequality has impacted me.
Did it through your job, maybe Through your schooling? Through your shopping in certain neighborhoods?
Yeah, that might be like when I think when some of my friends and I used to go up to Beechwood Place and how we would be followed. And how we would be followed through the malls. And, you know, and even at our own mall at Randall Park Mall, you know, when we were teenagers, and how we would get, you know, people following us through, you know, the security following us through, or the salespeople looking. And even as a matter of fact, since you did bring that up, I used to work at Chapel Hill Mall at JCPenney's. Of course,
Where's Chapel Hill?
it's in Akron,
Okay.
and I used to see, of course, I knew who all the plainclothes security guards were. Mm-hmm. And I would watch them. And I noticed that they watched more of the black consumers than they did the white consumers. And then they would come over and ask me, did you watch that lady go in the dressing room? I said, she had 3 items. She came out with 3 items. You know, I said, yeah, that's like they never told me that I was supposed to check people in. So I didn't, you know, she asked me, was it open? I said, yeah. I mean, it wasn't like we had a key and I had to go open it and, you know, give her a number, how many items, you know, so it wasn't that type of store. It was, you know, like Macy's, you get what you get and you go in, try them on, come back out, either give them to the salesperson, no, I don't like these, or yeah, ring them up. Mm-hmm. So, but I did notice that, how they watched more.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like there was some inequality in the city of East Cleveland?
Sometimes I feel that East Cleveland got an unfair run. I don't know if it was due to the politics or, you know, what happened, but, you know, it kind of seemed like people didn't care to want to help this city recover.
And when you say people, would that be surrounding?
Maybe not surrounding other suburbs, but I'm talking about like probably more like maybe the county where they could get grants, or even the federal where they could come in. And I mean, this year, Taylor Road, Cleveland Heights got fixed. Taylor Road, East Cleveland still got big chuck holes in the middle of Taylor Road, the East Cleveland half. So it's like, you know, you go smooth and then boom, boom, boom. You know. So, I mean, not even, you know, they got a big grant in Cleveland Heights to fix the street, but you couldn't just, this little part of Taylor Road, that's East Cleveland, you couldn't just go ahead and get them a few $1,000s to fix that half of the street also. So, yeah,
Some very stark differences
mm-hmm.
in how people are treated.
Right. And even a city.
Or have access.
Right. Or even how a city is even treated because of the people who live there.
So, do you go into University Circle a lot?
I drive through a lot because I have to go downtown to a lot of meetings downtown. So I drive through a lot of, I don't really, maybe once in a while I might stop and get something to eat at University, but most of the time I'm just usually driving through.
So there museums and universities and things like that. Have you visited some of the museums?
Yes, I have visited some of the museums.
So now it's said that University Circle is moving their borders and they've built the townhouses down.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that the fact that they're spreading out to have some things in East Cleveland, do you think that's a good thing or?
I think that's a wonderful thing. And I think when I went to, I missed it this year, so I forgot the date. I usually like to go to the mayor's State of the City address.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went last year and he was talking about it, and talking about the, the new apartments or the townhomes that moved like right there when you're coming off, I think, Woodward or something, off those side streets.
Mm.
And how University, because East Cleveland is right here, and University Circle, because now you can get some of those college kids to, stay here and get some of that economic, money. I think that's a wonderful thing that somebody is now seeing some of the value that East Cleveland has. And they are nice apartments, and the mayor did tell me to go and apply for them, but I didn't.
This is, it's going to take a lot of support from a lot of outsiders, or do you think the city of East Cleveland can do it themselves?
I think we're going to need some support from some outsiders. I think we do need to look outside. That's just like with, families. As we know with our culture, a lot of things we always wanted, you stay at home, everything stays in the house. You don't go outside and tell nobody any of our business. And I think that's sometimes what happened, and I think that you need to build those outside networks. And I think that East Cleveland would benefit from having support from outsiders, other people coming in and not just seeing this as an eyesore. Okay, let's sell the top half to Cleveland Heights and let's sell this bottom half to Cleveland and wipe out East Cleveland. No, I don't think we need to do that.
I think you see that parallel you gave us, it applies to the children's homes that you work with too, not to keep those secrets in-house, but to let people know what's going on.
I mean, because maybe we can help, we don't want to take you from your mom, but if your mom needs help or your dad needs help because maybe he's beating mom, maybe we can get you and mom both out that situation, try to get your dad the help that he needs. So he won't, maybe the only time he come home and beat mom is when he's drunk. Maybe we need to, work on that. So yeah, come and tell somebody you trust, that.
Can you recollect a memory or instance when the community fought for something?
Right now, with the two people when they had the police chase from Cleveland to East Cleveland, and the two people who got shot at the middle school, I do see the residents from when I watch the news and even a couple of the council meetings, seeing them trying to stand up because they did feel disrespected. And that was disrespect. You don't radio into your you don't radio into the police station saying we're coming in on a high-speed chase. You just come into this city and just do whatever you want. And I do see the residents standing up because I even take it as I could have been killed that night. Because I do a lot with the theater, and I go home down Terrace, past Heritage School, right there at Wymore. So that could have been my car coming through there at 10:30 that night, either smashed by them, shot up by the police because they were just shooting however, and then even the houses that surrounding right there could have been, you could have shot through those people's houses and you're not thinking of, So, and I'm glad to see the residents standing up, not just coming to the East Cleveland meetings, but going to the ones that they happen in the city of in the city of Cleveland, that's talking about that whole situation. So I do see the residents fighting, and I even try to even see even the mayor and Chief Spots even, fighting because they want to know, why did y'all just come through our city and just feel that you could just come in and just do whatever you feel that you can do and whatever you want, and not feel that you have the right to even repair radio to our police station saying we're coming through your city with a high-speed chase. But I'm thankful that East Cleveland Police was not involved. So I am thankful for that.
They're fighting for it, and that might be an inequality, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that was just, to me, just outright disrespect.
Yeah.
You just come,
Disregard.
yeah, 53 yeah, okay.
That was terrible. So, how have surrounding institutions and cities impacted East Cleveland? So, that police chase could be one of them.
Right. One, yeah, that was, I think, one impacted the city, I think, to stand up more, because I do think some of the residents they go to city council meetings. Some speak up, some just sit there and take whatever is said to heart and go with it. But I'm glad to see that they are standing up for their city.
And when we talk about University Circle, that has made a...
But I think that's a positive impact, that, University Circle wanted to move into East Cleveland, right, and be a part and add on, and maybe help build some revenue to get some more money into East Cleveland, to where we would be able to fix the rec center. Because I used to go to the rec center for meetings, and I think one time, it wasn't the teen summit, it was something that we were doing with the rec center, and the floorboards were coming up off the floor. Get more money in to help, even the Helen S. Brown Senior Center, to get maybe more activities for the seniors. Get more activities for these young people to get them off the streets, hopefully. And
so the question is, surrounding institutions and cities have impacted. So, would you say that people have to go outside? Would that be kind of a reverse?
We do, we do. Like, because there's no grocery store, no major grocery store. There's no Dave's, no Giant Eagle, no Heinen's here in East Cleveland. So we got to go to Cleveland Heights to shop, or you got to go to South Euclid to shop for your groceries. There is no major department store. So I'm going to what used to be Mays on the Heights. Now is, I don't know, Cedar. I don't know what it is now. Cedar on the Heights. I don't know. Or Richmond Mall. There's no. There's even though this is like one of my pet peeves. There's no restaurants in East Cleveland. No real restaurants in East Cleveland. You get tired of McDonald's. You get. Rallies, that's, because that's the only place I can go to for lunch, So and if I want to go, I got to go to Cleveland Heights on Coventry, so that takes me about 15 minutes out of my lunch break, then I got to wait in line, so that's another 15 or 20 minutes. And so when I drive back to work, I got to eat at my desk and work. So, and even if I went, even up towards even South Euclid way, there's still, just to get some businesses, restaurants, there's no.
Because that's my next question.
And and there's not even a car lot in East Cleveland.
I know. There used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So my next question is, what is your vision for the future of East Cleveland?
Restaurants. Somewhere I can go for lunch. No. I would like to see more businesses, would invest in East Cleveland, and not just, small, but I would like to see a major grocery store come into East Cleveland, a Dave's or a Giant Eagle, or even Highness if they want to come down, but I know they just stay up. But at least a Dave's or a Giant Eagle, to come into East Cleveland, have a real grocery store. Because some of the families here, maybe they can't even probably, have to use up what food stamps they do get at these little corner stores, spending all that money. And I think a lot of people don't take advantage of the Coit market. I would like to see that expand, the farmers market that East Cleveland has, and I think that's one of our lost jewels in East Cleveland, and as well as the theater. I would like, and that would be something even nice, even if they had a movie theater, if it was just a 2-screen movie theater or a 1-screen movie theater, that would just be nice, just to have a movie theater in East Cleveland.
How is the Playhouse? East Cleveland Playhouse?
The East Cleveland Theater. Yeah, and I think people, and it's funny, it's funny because we get more outside residents coming to see the plays at the theater than we get the East Cleveland residents. And I used to take my families, of course, my budget was cut, but every year I would take my family to go see the Christmas play, whatever Christmas play they were having. That would be our end of the year outing. We would see a play, I would have dinner for them, and then I would give the kids gifts. And then, and it's funny that people even say, I didn't even know East Cleveland Theater was still there, or that it's still there, and it's there. And that's to me, another lost jewel that people forget that it's there. And, it's not like the tickets are expensive. I think they probably the cheapest, $15. And we give quality plays.
Arts and culture.
Right.
Arts and culture are great. What are some of the major issues that need addressing in order to better the neighborhoods in the community and the city? Neighborhoods, community, city. Some of the major issues that need addressing.
Well, of course, we know drugs is one of the major issues. Teen pregnancy. I think somebody told me, and I don't, maybe I shouldn't say it because I don't want to mess it up, that there were 17 seniors pregnant at Shaw High School, which to me is a lot. I don't care if the class of 517 young girls is still a lot to be pregnant. Teen pregnancy is another issue. Because I know at one point in time, teen pregnancy had kind of went down, but now it seemed to be blooming back up. Crime. And I don't know if it's the media with the whole police thing, saying that there's only 4 police officers per shift. Now it seems like every time I turn on the news, it's some home invasion in East Cleveland, or when they had the shooting at the church, at a funeral. So I don't know if the media is just trying to now hype up the violence in East Cleveland, or then, like I said before, last year there were 7 murders in East Cleveland, and I think that's a lot for a small suburb. And the gangs seem to be coming back into East Cleveland. So, there's a lot of, and even the housing issue in East Cleveland with all these abandoned houses. I'm glad to see that Mayor Norton is taking initiative he did a good job in having a lot of them torn down, and even working on some of the apartment buildings, because I think that's where a lot of the crime, women walking past, getting snatched, pulled in, raped, or murdered. So I'm glad to see that those things are taking place. And another issue, I just wish the city I guess the people that we vote in can learn to get along with one another. What is the saying? let's agree to disagree, but not fight each other and embarrass each other in front of everybody else. We can agree to disagree. I might not like your policies, but it probably work for the city. So just, as Rodney King would say, can we all just get along?
I was thinking that, yeah, bless his heart.
So,
What would you be prepared to do to participate in making East Cleveland better? So sounds like you're working on a few things.
we're working with the families to help them understand, even if you are a renter, still respect your property because it's still yours. I mean, this is where you live at. I do a lot with, like I said, with the city and the coalition, the Bridges of Hope Coalition, and working with the Teen Summit. I've done the Teen Summit the 3 years they've had it here in East Cleveland. You know, working, helping them organizing it, being a part of the committee. I was a part of the reality tour committee, but I got so much put on my plate with my job that I had to step away from that committee. But I still participate. Whatever needs to be done, you know.
Sounds like you do a lot in the city, from arts and culture to foster parents and teens and.
I try. I would love to see East Cleveland, you know, back to where East Cleveland once was. And like I try to tell people, like I never tell the families, the situation you're in now, you didn't get into it in a day, and we're not going to clean it up in a day. Mm-hmm. And it took East Cleveland this long to get to where it's at now, and I know it's going to take us some time to get it back to where we would like to see East Cleveland.
I think so. Are you happy with some of the development that you're seeing?
Yes.
So you think you're moving in the right direction?
Yes.
Thank you. Any last parting thoughts that you'd like to share? I got
No, not really. I just hope that we can just, you know, take it piece by piece, day by day, and just get East Cleveland, you know, the respect it deserves to be called a suburb. You know, a lot of people forget that East Cleveland is a suburb, mm-hmm. You know, to be recognized like Cleveland Heights and South Euclid and, you know, Beechwood and Warrensville, that this East Cleveland is a suburb as well, just like them. Mm-hmm. It's not eastern part of Cleveland. It's East Cleveland, a suburb.
Thank you so much for taking time to share your thoughts and experiences with us.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it. And I'm glad to help and, you know, and be any part I can. So thanks.
Nancy, if you don't mind, I just
yes.
have a couple.
Please.
Tammi, we'd like to thank you for being part of the Social Justice Institute Oral Life Narrative, and I guess I'm kind of privileged that we have some history together.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to follow up on a couple of points that you touched upon. You talked about being the child of a biracial family.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes.
How many?
It was 6 of us, 3 boys and 3 girls.
All in Cleveland?
2 in California and 1 in Atlanta, and 2 passed.
Sorry to hear that. Where was your mom and dad originally from?
My mom was originally from Cleveland. She grew up on like the central area. My dad, I'm not sure.
you mentioned you had a stepfather.
Yeah, my stepdad, I think he grew up in, I guess the Quincy area is kind of the central area. But I know he had a lot of, I know he hung out a lot on Quincy, my stepdad. So, and I know that's where a lot of his family lived at.
So what was life like being one of 6 children?
Well, I had it kind of easy because I was the youngest. So, and like I said, all of them were much older. The closest one to me was 9 years older than me. So a lot of times I felt like the only child because they never, you know, if they did have to watch me or take me, I remember my oldest sister taking me and not want to be bothered, so she would hide me in the bushes. So the sister that's closest to me, she lives in California, that's my sister Lisa. You know, she would like just treat me real mean, and I used to hate her to do my hair. So my brothers, well, my 2 older brothers, Dumas and my brother Boo, they were more my protectors. My brother Greg, I really didn't know too well because he went into the Army when I was a little girl. So.
Okay. Why would you feel like your sister treat you like that?
Because I think they just didn't want to be bothered with no little girl trailing along with them. And I think the one that's 9 years older, the one who I said I didn't like her doing my hair, because she was the baby before I came along. And she got all the attention. And then I come 9 years later, and she didn't like it.
If you don't mind me asking, were you all children of biracial parents?
No, they both had, they all had black. They were both black.
You think that had anything to do with it?
No, I just think that she just didn't like me because I took her baby spot. I took her being a baby.
So when you talk about being young and coming down to East Cleveland, I'm taking it because your siblings were so far apart that they didn't come with you.
No, it was just me. And actually, my oldest sister actually did. She moved on Bryn Mawr. She was another one of those transient families. She lived in East Cleveland for a little while, and she actually moved across the street from my aunt on Bryn Mawr. And it was funny because, and I guess I'm guilty of this, she would tell us, we would make fun of her living in East Cleveland because she always lived like in, Warrensville or like Shaker. And when she moved to East Cleveland, we was like, oh, you moved down there in the ghettos? And she was like, that's a suburb. Y'all stop making fun. I was like, that ain't no suburb. So I'm guilty of saying that it wasn't a suburb. But I was little and I didn't understand, so no.
So what was your mom like?
My mom worked. She was a workaholic. I was a latchkey kid. I think I learned responsibility a lot younger than a lot of other kids. Letting myself in, learning how to cook for myself, making sure, I was kind of like sometimes I felt like I was kind of like my own mom, making sure that I had my homework done and things that needed to be done before she got home. And once she had hired a babysitter for me, I think when I was like 10 years old, and I never understood why, because it's not like I ever did anything to make her think that I need the babysitter, but I think the girl convinced her, because I think the girls like my brothers. They were kind of like me, wanting to come to East Cleveland and see those brothers around the corner from my aunt. That's why I hated when my aunt moved on Grassmere, because I couldn't get down to Elsinore no more.
One of the things I always wondered, I had a buddy that was a biracial child, and his mom was the opposite of yours. His mom was white and the father was black, but she never sat him down to have that racial conversation with him. Had you ever had any of that?
She never had the racial conversation. She just always instilled in me that I was black, and basically it's like that's that, So
How did she help you deal with? Because that's something you had to acknowledge and you had to reckon with.
I think I kind of dealt with it a lot on my own, and going to school, learning, getting into a few fights, especially when I was more elementary school.
In Warrensville?
Well, I went to Catholic school first. We were Catholics, and going to Catholic school, and having the kids, making fun of me.
Like what?
Like I said, white girl. You yellow. You not like us. We don't like you. And having to defend myself because I'd be like, I'm not white. And and that seemed like that went on. And so if you call me white girl, I was in the principal's office. So because I think I just took offense to, people calling me the white girl. And I used to try to, because my sisters were more browner than me. So when I used to try to go in their makeup and put, their makeup on to make myself look darker. But of course I couldn't get all this, but, I would try to, put my face to make it darker.
So it's something you've had to deal with over the years. And that was in school. Had you experienced any type of racial anything in Warrensville at all?
No, not really. No, not really. Not too much in Warren. Of course, I had a few girls who tried to fight me, especially once my mother had took me out of Catholic school and put me into Warrensville schools. And I was the new kid because, like I said, I went through all elementary school, and then I was supposed to transfer into Catholic high school. But when I told my mom I was going to become a nun when I finished high school, she took me out because she said I didn't understand what really becoming a nun was all about, But, and she got me because she knew I hated the uniforms. Well, I hated the pants because I had to wear plaid pants, and I hated the pants. So if I didn't have to wear those pants no more, and I could wear my own jeans and clothes to school, I was happy.
Catholic school were you at?
I was at St. Joseph's down on 27. I don't know why my mom took me to school all the way, but I think because that's the Catholic church that we went to, down by St. Vincent's Hospital that used to be across the street from St. Vincent's Hospital. So my mom used to drive me from Warrensville to that school every morning. So.
How about any racism in East Cleveland?
I got it a couple times when I would go to some of the dances with my cousins at Shaw, because I didn't know, some of the kids didn't know me, and some of the boys liked me, not the ones I liked, but the brothers around the corner, no, and some of the boys liked me, and of course other girls at Shaw. Like them, and then here come, this girl. So, and I think I do remember getting into a fight at Shaw High School with some Shaw girls, going back to Warrensville, it was face all scratched up, their faces, it was, so. And even coming, because I was also a majorette for Warrensville High School, and even coming to the football games, I remember Shaw, or East, I don't know who, I don't know if it was Shaw students or just East Cleveland, broke out all of our school buses windows. So I don't think that was racism. That was just kids being rivals at, as far as football and basketball and things go. But
Sounds like you spent a lot of time, and I remember some of that. Did you notice the theater when you were young?
I noticed the theater when I was young. I had never been over there when I was young, but I used to look over there like when we would go up to the library, or I was going around the corner to walk up and down Elsinore to get some people's attention, but they never once looked at me, but that's okay. But no, I did notice the theater, and I used to always want to go over there, but my family wasn't into the arts like I became into the arts. So I think I started drama in high school, took drama in high school, took a couple courses in college, but didn't make it a major. Wanted to move to New York to study more. Didn't have the family support. I don't even want to say what they say I would become if I did that. So I stayed and just went to college, and so.
But you went to college where again?
Let's see, where did I start? I started at OU. Got put on academic probation.
Oh, Bobcat.
Got sent home because even when they put me on academic probation, I still didn't improve my grades because I wasn't used. My mom was that's why I said I had more freedom too when I came to visit with my aunt in East Cleveland, because my mom was real strict. So I couldn't do much at home, so I was kind of sheltered. So when I got to college, I'm like, oh, what? Ain't nobody really checking to see what I'm doing. Man, so and y'all give me a list of what my assignments I do? It ain't, okay, all right, I know when they do, I'll work on them. Don't nobody care if I go to class? Okay, yeah, I'm good. So I was partying and, missing assignments, missing deadlines, and so they put me on probation. Then when I still didn't improve, as of course I got home enough to intercept that letter before my parents got it, know that I wasn't about to be kicked out. So then I got sent home. Then I think I went to Tri-C. Then I transferred to Marshall in West Virginia. I didn't like it. There. So then I went to Texas, A&M. Then I came home and went to Akron, and that's where I finally graduated. But a lot of times I kind of sat out in between, and so that's why it took me like 10 years to graduate from college. But I got through.
We're gonna come right back, and that's super, because I knew some of that, but wanted to get it on tape. Because my next question: how did you develop such a love for East Cleveland? Why East Cleveland?
When I started working for the East Cleveland Neighborhood Center let me go back further than that. I worked at Murtis Taylor, and I worked in the Mount Pleasant community. I left Murtis Taylor in 2005. Didn't work for 2 years. I traveled around with a dance company during that 2 years. I don't dance. Trust me, I don't dance. I just traveled around with them. And then I was good back then at saving my money, so I had enough money to where it was covering things for me. Then after that, I was like, okay, it's time to, reality, job, work, kicking in. So I start, working my networks again in Cleveland. And it's funny because this one lady, and I think it took her like maybe 3 months when I was working my networks to tell me to apply for the job in East Cleveland. And then when she finally told me, she's like, yeah, okay, yeah, East Cleveland is looking for a rap specialist. Go ahead and apply for it. I mean, she was just like she didn't want me. Like, she was sending me everywhere else to get a job, but it's like she was just kind of beating around. Like, she did not want me to come and work in East Cleveland. So I interviewed for the job at the East Cleveland Neighborhood Center, basically doing the same thing I'm doing now, but I was a rap specialist. And since I had the experience in doing it when I did it in Mount Pleasant, basically she called me after the interview and was just like, basically, when can you start? So, and I think once I started, and I think when I became the supervisor there, and I started networking and meeting people in East Cleveland, and I just don't know. I mean, and that's why I think a lot of people think that I was raised and born in East Cleveland, because I think I give them more love than I give Warrensville. So I don't know where the passion for my love for East Cleveland came from. I guess it was just working with these families and, seeing how, coming up, even though I wasn't raised here, but coming to visit my cousins on those weekends, seeing what East Cleveland once was and has started to become, and then what it became, and hoping that maybe I can have an impact on, if it's just the families I'm working with, or if it, a big impact of East Cleveland. So and I did move, because a lot of because it seemed like most people tend, wherever area you grow up at, you tend to stay within, like, if you grew up in Warrensville, I know a lot of my Warrensville friends like live in Bedford, Oakwood Village, Solon, things like that. And I lived in Solon for a little while, for about a year. And it's a nice community, great school system. I think probably one of the best in the country. But I just didn't find myself that passion, like you want to be involved in your community because you want to know what's going on in your community. I didn't go to none of the city council meetings. I didn't go to none of the town hall meetings. Y'all okay up here in Solon? I'm about to go down there. I got stuff to take care of in East Cleveland. And so then I end up moving back down here, but I stay right up the street. It's in Euclid. And my mom lived in Indian Hill, so I would stay close to her. So, and I don't know where that passion for East Cleveland came from. And so I said, maybe I might move to East Cleveland, or maybe I might run for mayor. I'm just playing mayor, and I ain't gonna run this.
We love the fact that you do have a passion for East Cleveland, no matter how it came about. How long have you been in your area of work?
About 15 years.
That's a long time. I wanted to follow up on race and racism and inequality. When we look at inequality, and in particular on a personal level, you could look at it job-wise, and when we talked a little bit about that, from a community perspective, do you think that some of the, and you mentioned it earlier, the non-investment of the county and federal government, you think that was an inequality with racism or inequality with poor people?
I think it might have been both. And sometimes I think it could have been both, because sometimes I think, and I don't matter what party, whether it's Republican, Democrat, or Independent, or now this new Tea Party, I think they want to keep people where they are. Some people want to keep people where they are. They don't want to see people progress. They don't want to see poor people get out of the situations that they're in. And I think nothing wrong. And I mean, I know when the welfare system was created, it was created for a temporary to help people get back on their feet, because during that time it was a depression. People had, lost their jobs and so on and so forth. And to get people temporary money. But then later on, when women needed those cash benefits, if they were married, they had to get rid of their husband. So they kind of broke up the family with our systems. And I think that's just inequality, because now you have men who didn't have to be held accountable, because if they're in the house, she can't get help. So now, daddy did become a rolling stone, because he didn't have to stay there with mom, because mom needed to get those cash benefits and he couldn't get a job for whatever reasons. And that's the one thing I hate that the system did, was pull a lot of these men away from their families. And I'm glad to see now that they do have these strong fathers, these fatherhood initiatives that's coming to try to bring these fathers back into their children's lives and into these women's lives. And hopefully, the bitterness, like I tell the families I work with too, when I'm also a parent instructor. I have my certification to teach parenting. And I tell them, whatever y'all issues are, don't make it the kids' issues. But I do think that the system kind of broke up our families and brought that injustice, that inequality, and even that into our families, And, sorry.
I want to come back to that, but I want to interject here. Do you have any children yourself?
No.
Okay. I wanted, because you said something that was really powerful, and I wanted to kind of go more into that, and that was the part about wanting to keep people where they're at. And the power in that is one of our questions, one of our approved questions is, how do you think surrounding cities and institutions have impacted East Cleveland? And when you think about UCI, University Circle, UH, Cleveland Clinic, Cleveland Heights, and I agree with you, you said it earlier, and I think about Coventry. There's this much stretch of land, they could have just paved that, right? How do you think inequality, or do you think inequality has played a part in the way the surrounding cities and institutions have treated us?
I think they did treat, if you want to say, like a stepchild. Like, East Cleveland doesn't matter. It's just, a bunch of poor black folks living down there. They don't need, we're not taking our business down there because we know that they're going to rob us or break into it, or, even the whole hospital situation, taking that trauma center away. Either if something happens here, and I mean, when people think of trauma, they think of the gunshot wounds. I mean, that's the first thing that come to mind with East Cleveland. I lived in, I guess I'm a transient person too. I lived in Cleveland Heights for a little while too. And when everything happened with the whole Ewan Road thing, Cleveland Heights residents was like, oh my gosh, that's just so sad. People are going to lose their jobs. Ain't nobody have to go to the hospital. I said, well, where do you think they take you when you fall off your ladder? The trauma center at Ewan Road. I was like, if a firefighter gets hurt, trauma center is not because they down there at East Cleveland shooting and stabbing one another. That's not what the trauma, but that's not what the trauma center is for. If you have a heart attack, you go into the trauma center. I was like, so now think about when they shut that down, either you go into Metro or you go into Hillcrest. Hillcrest, driving up Mayfield Road, is going to take you 20 minutes, and then when you hit that part where between Mayfield and Psalm Center is crazy and hectic. And I was like, and it's going to take, and I was like, and think about the paramedics. It's good, even though they might have their sirens on, it's going to take them about 20 minutes to get you to Hillcrest. Then once they get to Hill, now if something else happens here in East Cleveland or Cleveland Heights or South Euclid or wherever, they still at Hillcrest. Because before they leave Hillcrest, they got to wipe down their van, turn in all their paperwork, so that's going to take them about another 20 minutes to do all that. Get in now they can't put their sirens on because they ain't got no emergency. So now they just got to drive through the traffic like the rest of us. And it's going to take them that time to get back to maybe another trauma that does happen. I was like, because we all know you're not rushing us to Cleveland Clinic down or University Hospital. You're not.
Why is that? Oh, come on, don't hold out on us. Why is that?
Because if you ain't got the money, and I don't even care what kind of insurance, if you ain't got the right insurance either, you going to Metro. You probably were not even going to Hillcrest. You probably just taking you right on over to Metro. And that's about what, 45 minutes? So, and I told them, I was like, you know, it ain't just because those people, we had that trauma center in East Cleveland because the East Cleveland residents down there, we just down there just brawling in the middle of the street all night long. It was other things. You falling off the ladder, you trying to think you can fix your roof and falling off the ladder. You having a heart attack, having a stroke. That's what the trauma center was for. So.
We talked about UCI coming into East Cleveland. Can you give us any thoughts on that? Because certainly UCI, University Circle, Case, they've been there. And we've been here. Why not?
I think now they're starting to see the benefit of East Cleveland. I mean, the property. And it might be, you know, maybe they thinking that they're probably getting things cheaper. You know, they don't have to pay as much if they maybe try to move into another direction. You know, maybe moving closer, get into East Cleveland. You know, right now the property value is probably cheaper, it's lower. The taxes is probably not as high right now. And then once we get in there, then of course, you know, things will start going up. You know how, you know, it happens. So I think they see the benefit of becoming a part of East Cleveland, and hopefully being able, you know, like you said, and then hopefully East Cleveland can take advantage of that. You know, get some of their money, because you need it. Come on, keep on. We got some more property for y'all. Come on, let's bring it on. So yeah, we got some deals for you, University Circle. Bring it.
Okay, good deal. And I guess the last topic I wanted to cover, couldn't let you off the hook on this because you started talking even before we cut the tape on about this documentary. Can you tell us more about this documentary, the name of it, and what it was about?
I was on YouTube looking up the East Cleveland Council meetings. And this Operation Save East Cleveland came up. And I was like, that looked like a movie. They were shooting a movie without me? No, so. And then I went to the trailers and I seen the trailers. And then I found the documentary is about 45 minutes long. I don't remember the guy who directed it and put it together, but I know he was a resident of East Cleveland. Went to Shaw High School. I think he went to Howard University, if I remember that correctly. I found the documentary very educational. It went through when it was the property of Rockefeller, how it became how the city just became very prosperous and wealthy with, the big houses and the mansions and everything that East Cleveland had. And then it went from there to the deterioration of East Cleveland now with, the drugs. And what I liked about it is that they had residents who still live in East Cleveland. Some have moved out of East Cleveland, and showing where they grew up at, and I think one guy said he graduated from Shaw in '92, and the house that he showed, he said they used to go in there, break it open because it was abandoned in '92, and he's like, and it's still abandoned now in 2012. And he said they used to go in there and just, open it up, have parties. And then showing some young ladies who, showed that, we used to live in this apartment building, and then even showing the streets and, the potholes and, who want to drive, down some of these streets to tear up your cars. They had one young lady who lives out of state but came back home, and she said she just can't believe how East Cleveland, looks now. And they even talked about some of the famous people who came out of East Cleveland. I was shocked. I mean, I never knew a lot of famous white people. I think it was like a baseball player and I think a football player, came out of East Cleveland. I don't remember their names. But if you're interested, just go to YouTube and look up Operation Save East Cleveland. And I think that's what they also trying to do is show people, what can we do to, bring this city back to where it was.
Tammi, I believe that about covers the few questions that I've had. Nancy, I'll turn it back to you.
It was wonderful.
Well, thank you.
We thank you so very much for taking the time to share your story and your perspective.
Thank you.
I believe that this will be helpful in community dialogues, because this will be some guidelines to know what was and your perspective of what could be fixed, and give people some direction. That's what's needed. So we really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.